The next thing is that we've had a hurricane that blew through the southeast, and it blew through Florida, blew through Georgia, and really blew through North Carolina. In fact, when I was doing the show last week, literally the hurricane was on its way to where I live. Now, I am in an area in the state of Florida, luckily, where I'm not going to get it near as bad as the Panhandle did. I'm in the north central Florida part of Florida, and we got it. It wasn't great. We had about 40-mile-per-hour winds, which, it doesn't sound all that bad, but when you're in the middle of it, it was coming through probably around 10 o'clock at night, and it was blowing. It sounded scary. It really did. So I can't even imagine what it feels like when you're in the Panhandle and through Georgia and especially North Carolina. Everything, and as awful as it was, my last show, you could see the light started flickering because it was coming. And literally about an hour later, my power just shut off for the night and did not come back on until 3 o'clock in the afternoon the next day, which I consider myself extremely lucky because that's the worst of what happened. I had people that worked with, poor lady, her house, her power went out. Tree went right through her roof, right in the middle of the night as the power went out, and she's there with her dog, scared to death, doesn't know what to do. So the only thing she could do is just try to sleep on her couch and hope that another tree doesn't fall through her house. So it was horrible and devastating. And generally, when a hurricane comes through, people have sympathy no matter who you are and what you are. In fact, in the state of Florida, it came through the Panhandle. And if anybody knows anything about the state of Florida, the Panhandle is basically Alabama. I mean, it is Trump country, the whole Panhandle. But it still breaks my heart that going through there, if anybody losing their house and, losing their lives, losing their pets, losing their just everything that they own, and now they are to this day either without power or they have nowhere to go or they're stuck in hotels and don't know what to do. It's just an awful thing. But right now we have an awful man going around and spreading some of the worst disinformation that the flying monkeys are going around and spreading. How do I know this? Because I've got flying monkeys in my life who are trying to spread this information to me as if, first of all, they're getting me on something. I would hope that at this point they would know I'm intelligent enough to not read what they're sending me and go, holy shit, maybe I'm not going to vote for Kamala Harris and Joe Biden is worse than I thought, because North Carolina has no money because Kamala Harris and Joe Biden gave it all to migrants so they can set up their homes here. If you are truly stupid enough to believe that, you're not going to do it. I know you won't, but I'm just asking, maybe just stay out of politics altogether. Just do not get yourself involved in politics. I would just strongly advise you to stay away from not even politics, just even news, anything that resembles news or politics. Just stay away from it and reevaluate your entire existence. If you are stupid enough to believe that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are sitting around and saying, well, what are you going to do about these people in North Carolina? What can we do? We gave all the money to the migrants. I guess they're on their own. I can't stress this enough. If you're stupid enough to believe that, I'm begging you, just do not involve yourself in politics. Don't vote. I know people usually yell, go out and vote. I don't care who you vote for. Don't go, just go out and vote. I do care who you vote for if that is what you're making your vote on. If you are voting because you are not smart enough to not believe this nonsense, then you shouldn't be voting. Maybe it's a difference of opinion for me on this one. I don't think you should be voting if you're that gullible to believe that. But anyway, let's play this clip real quick. This is Donald Trump flat lying. And again, how could you look at a dude and go, okay, I've got to vote for somebody for the leader of the free world. This is about as serious of a vote that I can make in my life. And I've got to vote for somebody who I think best fits the morals and the character of this country. But you have a guy who could lie so blatantly to your face, even though it is incredibly easy to disprove exactly what you're saying. This clip is going to show you exactly what I'm talking about. Donald Trump tried to pretend like Joe Biden didn't even bother calling the governor of Georgia, and the governor of Georgia had something different to say.
Need some help from the federal government. They have to get together, ideally with the governor. That governor needs to, he's been trying to get them, and I'm sure they're going to come through. But he's been calling the president, hasn't been able to get him.
I just spoke, the president just called me yesterday afternoon. I missed him and called him right back. And he just said, hey, what do you need? And I told him, you know, we got what we need. We'll work through the federal process. He offered that if there's other things we need, just to call him directly, which I appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it is completely different, the two different things that were said. One was said he didn't even call him, and then you had the governor himself come up and say, not only did he not call me, he asked me, what do I need? You know, he was great, all this stuff. How you can respect anybody that is trying to win an election by literally and blatantly lying to you. And they're lying to you not in the old sense of, I'm going to get you this, I'm going to get you that. It is lying in a manner that is so dangerous to get people to believe that you have the current leader who literally just does not care about a hurricane blowing through a town, that you're that desperate to try to get people to believe that. Now, his problem is that the morons that he's talking to and the morons who choose to believe this, and yeah, I'm using the strong language like idiots and morons because you are an idiot and a moron if you choose to believe this, especially after you just saw the governor just say that is, he didn't say verbatim, that's not true, but he just said, not only did I hear from the president, heard from him yesterday, asked me, what do I need? Well, give me, I'll give you anything you want. But he's that desperate to make up lies so grand because he's so scared about losing this election, which again tells me there's nothing manly about this guy. He's a scared little pussy who can't handle losing this election. But the main reason why he can't handle losing this election is because he knows what's going to happen to him when he does lose the election. When he does lose the election, he knows he's going to prison for the rest of his life, and deservedly so. And I cannot wait to see it. I can't wait to see him go to prison. But anyway, if you could vote for that guy, if you could look at yourself in the mirror, and I also said this too, if you have wife, kids, daughters, mothers, sisters, nieces, if you have any women in your life and you can vote for this guy, and where he basically says, hey, if you live in a state and they say you have to have rape babies, you have to have rape babies, and that I promise you I'm not going to promise you, but there's a decent chance that here in the state of Florida that could happen, depending on how the election plays out with the Senate here. But it's, forget about Florida. It's already happening in some states. And if Donald Trump wins and they are able to enact this entire Project 2025, it's going to happen in more states. Some states that are not enacting the law for abortion, unless it is because of rape or incest or the life of the mother, they may change those laws based on who wins the presidency. So they may not have them now, but it is very likely that some of these states absolutely will change. But I don't understand how you can listen to a man who blatantly lies to your face to try to sucker you into voting for him because he's scared. And if you have any women in your life, especially wife, daughter, girlfriend, anything like that. It boggles my nieces, anything. It boggles my mind that you could vote for this guy who they've already made it clear that they will do this. But if you want to hear our future president and her response to the hurricane, this is really more how it's done.
24 hours, I have spoken with Governor Kemp of Georgia, Governor Cooper of North Carolina, and many local officials. I have shared with them that we will do everything in our power to help communities respond and recover. And I've shared with them that I plan to be on the ground as soon as possible, but as soon as possible without disrupting any emergency response operations, because that must be the highest priority in the first order of business.
Yeah, I mean, see, that's how it's supposed to be done. I mean, you take this seriously, and when you're talking about the victims, or when you're talking about the hurricanes, you're talking about the victims. You're not talking about yourself. You're not making this a political thing. You're not trying to win the election by doing this. You're being a statesperson. You're showing how it doesn't matter who you voted for in this particular instance. It is how you handle these situations. And this is exactly why Donald Trump lost in 2020, because he handled COVID so incredibly poorly that even people who would have voted for him, this was the start of the people who were like, man, I was going to vote for this guy, but he's basically telling me that my dad's in the hospital. Oh, well, that's what you get. They're old people. What can you do? And he didn't say that specifically, but there were plenty of people who were around him who basically said that. There were some people who literally said, you know what? Just sometimes you get old and you die. That's just what happens. That's the reality of things. And that was the whole mentality of the Trump administration for COVID. And it was more about money than it was about lives. And unfortunately for Donald Trump, some people, and a lot of people who cared more about the lives part, were the people who were going to vote for you. And you just told them, I don't care about you. I care more about the economy, because if the economy's bad, then I'm going to have a hard time winning this election. But what he didn't realize is at that particular time, because in general elections, it is mostly about the economy. And if the economy is bad during an election time, then it's harder for you to win. Incumbent presidents, it is easier for them to win, but if there's one way you're going to lose, it's if the economy is bad. And because COVID, the economy started to turn and it started to become worse and worse. People were losing jobs. The GDP was going down. There was all kinds of things that was happening during the economy that was not good. So he thought that, okay, we're going to focus more on this, then we're going to focus on the deaths. But if there's anything that people are going to take more seriously than the economy, it is their loved ones dying. And he wasn't smart enough to understand that. So what he did is he listened to these morons around him, and he took it like the Steve Bannons of the world, who said, Mr. Trump, you need to go out there and you just need to tell them that the Democrats are shutting down all these businesses. Well, first of all, that just wasn't true. First of all, major companies, major corporations closed down on their own. And the reason why they closed down on their own is because they didn't want, well, part of it was, and whether you look at this as a good thing or a bad thing, they didn't want it because if their employees came in and caught COVID because you forced your employees to come in, then there's lawsuits that there's going to be pursued all over the place. And corporations, at the end of the day, still love their money. And when they shut down, that was a money thing. There's absolutely no question about it. Surely there were some people who shut down because they cared about their employees. But if you look at major corporations, they care more about their money and their corporations than they do the employees. I'm not saying that they don't care about their employees at all. I'm sure that there was part of that was like, you know what, we have employees too, and we care about our employees and we don't want them dying. I mean, you had every sports league shut down. Government didn't make them do that. Las Vegas, my favorite place in the world, shut down. Joe Biden didn't, or the government, the federal government did not make them do that. Disney World here in Florida, a lot of companies here in the state of Florida shut down. Federal government didn't make them do that. So, the way Donald Trump handled COVID was so poor, that's probably why he lost the election. Had he handled it well, or had COVID never existed, there's possibility he would have won again. Who knows? But I think because he handled it so poorly, and again, he's handling this so poorly that he's not gaining voters. He's retaining some of the nut jobs that are already going to vote for him, and based on the fact that migrants are eating pets, which isn't true, based on the fact that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris stole all of the money from FEMA and gave it to migrants. Those people you already got. You got to add voters. You lost the last election. So in order to win the next election, you have to add voters. And this is not the way to do it. And this is why he's going to lose. But CNN did a good job. And I know you can't bring up CNN. Again, I don't watch CNN. I don't watch any cable news. But I'm not saying that on cable news that they don't report anything that isn't factual. I'm just saying now cable news has turned into a clown show. I mean, it's just turned into a big, how do we get money? How do we get more money? And what kind of stories can we tell to do that? Instead of being just straight news that is just nothing but straight news. And now it's all opinionated. It's all this stuff. And I find this garbage. But this is an actual fact check by CNN about comments that Donald Trump and others in the Republican Party has made in regards to this hurricane, which is absolute garbage. And here were the results of that fact check.
Moment to fact check a claim that is spreading far and wide about FEMA disaster funding. Let's first listen to what we're hearing from former President Donald Trump.
They stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants that they want to have vote for them this season.
And Republican Congressman Mike Waltz said on this show yesterday about people struggling with Helene's aftermath. This is what he said.
They're hearing from the DHS secretary they're out of money to help them, but they still have money to help people who have come to this country illegally. I think that's wrong on the face of it.
I want to go through the facts here. One, it is illegal for undocumented immigrants to vote in presidential elections. Two, Congress appropriates funds with intent for specific purposes. The money allocated to DHS for helping states to house migrants is separate, completely separate from the money for disasters. No money is being stolen from disaster relief. Three, FEMA says it has enough money for disaster relief for Helene, posting this fact check to its website. In fact, before the show, just to make sure I had all the facts right, did some digging. I spoke to a DHS official. That official says as of this morning, $45 million from FEMA that has already been used for Helene disaster relief. The concern is if people hear that money is going elsewhere, they may not even apply for relief. The official says people should know there is money available now to help.
That really, what she said there at the end, is probably the most dangerous thing, that when they're out there saying that FEMA is out of money and that it's all been given to migrants and everything. Now you have people who may be duped enough into believing that. And when they hear it, they're like, well, I guess we can't even apply for any money from FEMA because it's all gone, because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris gave it all to the migrants. And again, I will stress a million times that if you are willing to vote for somebody this weak and this pathetic to blatantly lie to your face about things that 100% are not happening and can be easily disproved, I strongly suggest that you reevaluate forget about how you vote, how you reevaluate how you go through life and how you take things in and how you allow yourself to be so easily manipulated into these ridiculous things that you are getting yourself so angry over that are just not true. Why would you want to anger yourself over things that are not true? Believe me, if this were true, I'd be angry with you. I'd be on your side and I'd be like, oh, boy, we got to get rid of these two assholes. Are you kidding me? They're legitimately taking the money from FEMA and they're giving it to migrants so they can put them up in housing. I mean, I'm with you. I'm voting for Donald Trump now if this really is the case. But it's not the case. It's easily disproven. It's not even this isn't even something that takes a lot of research. It takes one simple first forget about Google. It takes logic in your brain. If you can hear that and it automatically sticks in your brain to that being true, then you've got problems. Without questioning it for 1 second, then you've got some issues. So then that's when I would suggest that you make that reevaluations and say, do I have the issues that Brian said on the Black and White show? I do. Okay, then I'm going to reevaluate and just take a step back and maybe try to, when I investigate things or if I hear things, I'm going to investigate it properly. I'm just not going to believe everything I hear. Just so you know, I don't believe everything I hear, even if it's something that I like and I think is something positive for the Democrats or whoever it is that I'm voting for. I will fact check everything, because if I'm coming on a show where I get tons of different comments, I want to be able to back up what I say on this show, and I want to be able to respond properly to anybody that would come onto the comment section with at least a modicum of interest in having a real debate rather than the TDS and the cuck and all whatever the fuck they say. So I don't know. That's how I go about things. Maybe something that you may want to consider if you are allowing yourself to become angry over things that just are simply not true.